Week 2 is drawing to an end, and it's been an exciting week yet again. And it's time for us to start immediately by celebrating, Ed, some heroes and some zeros.
Fantasy Heroes.
9 receptions, 3 of them for touchdowns. Amon-Ra shone like the sun god that he is, and the Bears could only cower in his greatness.
He's had 25 targets in 2 weeks. Malik is the main man in New York. Russell Wilson would love a few more neighbours to throw to.
21 fancy points to the Atlanta Falcons defense. JJ McCarthy in his offense, just their helpless prey.
4 field goals totaling 205 yards and 4 PATs. Brandon Aubrey is the new sheriff in town.
Oh my golly god! Jared has only gone and thrown 5 passing touchdowns in week 2. He certainly made the Lions roar.
It was dangerous not to start Wilson this week. The 3% of you who did must be feeling pretty pleased with yourself.
I mean, smugness is what we associate with Russell Wilson. So it's only fair that you would feel like that yourselves, isn't it?
He is a very smug man, but he can be smug this week. We will allow it.
We're going to go back on some of those players and talk about some of the fantastic fantasy performances. But, Ed, I don't know about you, I've been let down by some players this week on my fantasy matchup. So let's stick it to them with some rhymes and some puns.
Fantasy Zeros.
What's the story with Jacory? After an electric week 1, the power was cut for Crosby Merritt as he registered just 4 rush attempts.
It was ridiculously quiet for Henry, who managed just 24 yards from 11 carries against the Browns.
What does it take for a defense to make the zeros list? -4 points will do it to the Bears and the guys.
Hunter Henry couldn't zero his sights on Sunday as he pulled in 1 catch for 9 yards.
Dutton caught just 1 of his 4 targets on Sunday as the Colts defense kept the reins tight.
Inefficiency was the chief reason for Pacheco being a zero this week. 22 yards from 10 carries as he moved like he had an arrow in his head. There were a few who missed the cut for zeros this week, who had poor performances. We had some big scores this week as well, though. I think Falcons-Vikings was a game that may have hurt several teams unless you had the Falcons defense.
Yes, I woke up this morning and thought, ooh, who scored big in that game? Oh, no one. It looked like a pretty painful matchup, didn't it?
There were lots of scorelines just above that line for being a zero, but nowhere near that hero line. But let's start with a game that definitely didn't disappoint us, and Bears Lions, a few points.
1 or 2.
Well, so, I mean, I'm going to start by pointing out that the Lions offense absolutely had the Bears defense pants down in week 2. Let's start with the obvious. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a monster of a game. 9 receptions, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns, 39.20 points. No shock, he's currently wide receiver 1. We've still got Monday Night Football to go, but that is going to take some beating. Goff, we included in the heroes, deservedly so. On fire with 23 completions, 28 passes, 334 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he looks like the real deal again this year. Currently, week 2's QB1. Once again, that's going to take some beating. Williams, wide receiver 12 so far. Gibbs, running back 8. Monty ensured he got a touchdown against his old team 2. The only downside for Detroit was Laporta was very quiet, but Brock Wright did some damage tight end instead. All good for Lions. Laporta's the only fancy blemish this week, maybe. Detroit proved that maybe they still have it on offense, even with Ben Johnson gone. I wonder how Ben Johnson's getting on in his new team. Yeah.
Not great.
I mean, Chicago, all the talk was about the improved O-line. Williams having all he needed to kick on in year 2, especially with Johnson coming across. From a purely fancy point of view, it's not been too bad for Williams, but the Bears need to start winning games. And we did say this. It seems that whoever lost this game was going to feel in dire straits. I just think it's the manner in which the Lions ripped the Bears to pieces on offense really hasn't helped. They've got the Cowboys next week. just as they look like they're warming up as well. So that's going to be a concerning one. DJ Moore played second fiddle to Rome Odunze again, who finishes the Bears wide receiver 1. Are we watching changing of the guard, or has it happened? I'm going to talk about Odunze more in a little while. The target share would seem to suggest that is on the way, though, with Odunze on 20, Moore on 11. But it's week 2. That can easily flip on its head, and we look back and it's just Odunze had a hot start and it fades back to where we would expect it to be. Colson Loveland hasn't made the immediate impact we had hoped for. Maybe weren't realistically going to get, but 3 targets over the first 2 games. He didn't get a reception in week 2. Would have really hurt those teams who are amongst the 18% of leagues where he was started. At 0-2, Chicago is picking up right where he left off last season. Last place in the NFC North. The Lions go 1-1. And after an ugly week 1, let's be fair, look like real contenders again this year, don't they?
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of rubbish spoken about this week with the Lions after their, I think, rusty start against the Packers, who themselves have been excellent the first 2 weeks. But the Lions did this several games last season where they absolutely ran riot on offense. And they've got the capability to do that. And, yeah, worrying times for the Bears. I think they need to get a win on the board soon. And, you know, you've got to have faith in Ben Johnson. They've invested in him, and it's certainly not time to kind of write him off. Definitely not. But, yeah, I think the Lions back where they'd expect to be, but work to do for the Bears. In terms of what you said about Odunze and Moore, yeah, week 2, we need a bigger sample size, but there are signs possibly that might be happening. But I wouldn't be counting DJ Moore out just yet.
No, I think it's easiest and probably the best form is that Odunze looks good. I think we can. That is something we have definitely seen. Target share, DJ Moore, that is to be confirmed. Which is your game of the week? Do you have any more points fests with tense ends this time, Ed?
I've got one more for you. An absolutely insane game. I mean, it started off at quite a steady pace, but exploded in the fourth quarter. In that final quarter, there were 41 points and 5 touchdowns. And let's not forget the 64-yard game time field goal from Brandon Aubrey, which was good for about 80 yards, wasn't it? It was absolutely ridiculous. There's been they've changed the ball this year, haven't they? Bits and bobs, and so I think it was a good situation for him because it would have been it was indoors, wasn't it? So, but even so, I mean, just absolutely unbelievable. Russell Wilson, we wrote him off week 1. How stupid we were! A man transformed, 450 yards passing. That included 3 touchdowns. Is he one to watch, or was it just the fact that the Cowboys can't really defend? Much more respectable from Dak too, as he managed 38 from 52, 361 yards and a couple of touchdowns. We said to keep faith with Dak, and he showed up well against a tough Giants defense. With Russell Wilson unleashing hell, it meant very few carries for the New York Giants running backs. I don't think it's any clearer who RB1 is in New York. We've speculated at the start of the year. And who is it? Is it Scatterby? Is it Tracy? I don't know. What is for sure is that Devon Singletary should be nowhere near your starting lineup. He is getting no workload whatsoever. As for Dallas, Javonte Williams is the clear RB1. He had 19 carries, but there was some work for Miles Sanders too. More on Javonte Williams shortly, so I'll not say much more about him at the moment. We mentioned Malik Neighbors in Heroes. He's an absolute target hog and will surely benefit playing alongside Wilson. We did say preseason, he's got that consistent quarterback that he didn't have last year. Let's not forget Wan'Dale Robinson. With 2 games to go, he's currently wide receiver 8 after 2 weeks. And I don't think we expected him to be there. Even Darius Slayton got some points, which is always very impressive. As for the Cowboys, Lamb and Pickens working exactly as we expected. Lamb is cleared wide receiver 1, 24 targets in 2 weeks, and Pickens is clear wide receiver 2, 13 targets in 2 weeks. Kevontae Turpin, on the other hand, won't get you many points, But well done if you're one of the 1% of managers who started him this week. Very impressive. Quiet for tight ends in this match. Only really Jason Ferguson got the targets necessary. 9 receptions, got him 16.8 fantasy points. Now, Theo Johnson is the clear tight end 1 in New York when it comes to workload, but he hasn't really converted that into significant fantasy points yet. Is it a case of when or if this will happen? Again, the jury's out a little bit on Johnson. We await a big score from him. I thought it was quite interesting that there were 35 points between the two kickers. You don't get that very often. Any thoughts on this game beyond anything I've mentioned?
Just I was starting to get a little bit tetchy about putting Dak forward as a start of the week until the fourth quarter. That was looking a bit... And I just about got Pickens earmarked as a 0 for this week as well, borderline until the fourth quarter. So, yeah, it was one of those games that just kicked in, and it was good to have overtime, I guess, just to see a bit more of that excitement, because you could have probably parked it earlier in the first half, couldn't you? As a bad job all around. But yeah, really, really kicked on. And yeah, Russell Wilson, I don't know. I'm not gonna pass any judgments. Whatever I say, the opposite will happen next week. So
I think he is the ultimate enigma, isn't he, Russell Wilson? I don't think we'll ever be able to.
He would absolutely love to be told that.
I'm about to say,
he would
love that.
Yeah, I am. Right,
comment if you like it, Russ.
Yeah. I'm sure he's definitely not watching. Russell, if you are watching, please do take a moment to subscribe, like, and give us a share. A man of your stature, we would love to have you sharing us on all your social media platforms, please, Big Russ. But please do take a moment and get involved in the comments below as well. Next up, Ed, I have got some players I have marked as having hot starts so far in 2025. Yes, we are only 2 games in, but let's get excited either before the bubbles are burst, or these hot starts feel like old news. So I want to put my flag on the hill early this season. Deebo Samuel, first up, drafted wide receiver 35 in redraft this offseason. So far has returned solid value. Wide receiver 6 finish this week and high up on the pecking order as well so far. This week with a few players left to go. 7 receptions in both weeks. He's outworking Terry McLaurin so far, and has a decent schedule ahead with the Raiders, Falcons, and Chargers coming up. So Deebo looks like a player you can confidently be starting at the moment. Travis Etienne, I would like a victory lap, because this is one of the few players that it felt like people were dumb in the offseason in many kind of sections. And I don't know why. Perhaps naively, because I also spoke highly of him last year and it didn't work out. So 50-50, I guess, on my fortune. But his ADP is RB31. I suppose it kind of felt about right, really, with Tootin in town, Bigsby waiting behind him, especially after last year's RB35 finish. But say RB6 last week, then Bigsby leaves, RB13 this week. Much higher scoring week for running backs in week 2 as well so far. I think you're really happy with him if you drafted that, because he will be your flex running back most likely. If people drafted very heavily running back ahead of you, at least you're running back 2. So you're quite happy with that, I think, as well. A player who I could probably copy and paste what we've said about there, except I wasn't necessarily all that high on him. Feels very similar to Etienne, is Javonte Williams, finished RB5 and currently RB4 on the week after being drafted as the RB38.
Genuinely looked elite, I think, Javonte Williams' first couple of weeks. And I never thought I'd be saying that. He looks like an RB1.
And he's doing so well, he let Miles Sanders sneak a touchdown from him in week 2. Yeah. That was exciting. I think Williams feels as safe as any running back for a decent weekly return currently. If you've got him, I don't see why you wouldn't be starting. I get it after week 1, thinking, right, maybe that's just a flash in the pan. I'm not going to gamble on him this week. There's no reason not to at this point. Rome Odunze, we've mentioned earlier, I think he's now arrived as a true NFL wide receiver. We said we need to wait to see what happens with that target share with DJ Moore. But it feels like a wide receiver we can rely on as good as any at the moment, really, when you think once again where you drafted him. Good week 1, wide receiver 19. Excellent week 2, current wide receiver 4. But he's involved. And so for a wide receiver, you're plugging in probably where he was drafted in your flex spot. You're happy with that. Finally, got Javon Johnson for us as well. We spoke pre-season about that contract and does that mean he's going to be heavily involved? The money he's being paid. Turns out in the NFL, if you follow the money, you can't go far wrong. He's had a lot of work, 20 targets in 2 games. That would suggest that he's going to be actively involved from here on in. He's got that rapport with Rattler. Good for a touchdown as well. 15.6 points week 1, 15.9 week 2. Long may the touchdown productivity continue for the ADP in the offseason, tight end 39. This every year we talk about, I think a lot of people do in the last round of best ball, particularly in your charity best ball drafts, you have like a favored player you take with your last pick who's no one else is taking. This year it was Javon Johnson for me, and I think it's the first time in about 3 years my last round pick has paid off in any way. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Any of those that you're a bit worried about, or do we just celebrate the positives while we're getting them?
I don't know if I trust Travis Etienne still, but maybe that's I got burned last year. I took him.
He's done nothing to earn anyone's trust, to be fair.
No, I took him quite early in a number of drafts last year, so I've got that kind of buyer's remorse. But yeah, he certainly has impressed at the start. I
think I could go on to say for the next 12 weeks, Travis Etienne's done it again. And I think you still good. Yeah, but that's just how it is, isn't it? Any other talking points from this week you want to raise, Ed?
Just a couple. I mean, firstly, just somebody who I think has really snuck under the radar and has had an excellent first couple of weeks is Puka Nacua. 20 point weeks in PPR. Despite I think Devontae Adams led him this week. But yeah, Puka is extraordinarily reliable. Similar to Puka is James Cook. Where is this touchdown regression that's supposed to be happening with James Cook? Next week, 3 touchdowns in 2 games so far. And as it stands, RB1 after 2 weeks with those 2 Monday Night Football games to come. We all banged on and on and on about touchdown regression, James Cook, touchdown regression, James Cook. And so far, we've been made to look pretty stupid. So, yeah. And I've got to mention him because I'm not mentioning him later in the waiver wire, but I've got to mention Danny Dimes. 2 weeks, 2 wins, 2 interception-free games. And 220-plus fantasy games. And we all said, wait, this week it's the Broncos, wait and see. But, he racked up a decent score again. So I think he's got the Titans this week. So Danny Dimes, is he someone you're seriously considering? I know I'll certainly be considering him in leagues where I've got Joe Burrow. God bless him. He's not dead, but we'll talk about Joey B in a bit. You notice I've changed. I'm fickle. Joey B's no longer behind me.
I don't notice that.
I'm very, very fickle. But yeah,
the interception king.
Yes, yeah. He's still got 20 points. And yeah, the other thing, I think we mentioned the lower scores last week, but yeah, big scores this week. Was it 6 players over 30 points?
Yeah, and last week it was only the one, Mr. Josh Allen, which I was still very, very happy about. We're really, really pleased for him that he got that last week.
I'm sure you were over the moon.
Right, so before we move on then, once again, if you haven't already, what are you playing at? Subscribe, like, give us a share as well for joining us for our shows for the whole of the season and beyond as well. We're around for a long, long time. Unlike some of these players heading into week 3, as we look at the injury reports, I would like, with it being in division, I'd like to poke fun at Joe Burrow, but you just can't. Like, it's
very sad.
We said earlier when we were speaking earlier the fact that when everything's clicking nicely for the Bengals, he's had a couple of really badly timed injuries. When he's fit, the defense can't be bothered to turn up for work. Like, you do genuinely feel for the guy. Left with what we thought was an ankle injury. Didn't look good at all. We now know it's grade 3 turf toe. That is a very specific injury. Grade 3 turf toe. It doesn't sound like that, does it? But clearly it is.
He couldn't just get, I think it's Brock Purdy's got turf toe as well, hasn't he? But his must be a grade 1 because he's only out for a few weeks. Of course, Joe Burrow had to go grade 3 and be out for 3 months, and looks like he's having surgery, not been confirmed yet. I mean, you've got to, I don't want to, but you've got to question his durability because that's his third significant injury. That's 3 out of his 6 seasons, am I right? Or 7 ruined by injury. Yes, the front office have got to take the hit because of not drafting the players around him, especially the O-line. But he has to take a bit of the responsibility himself in the way that he plays. But it doesn't make it any less disappointing.
No, so when you think about Lamar Jackson is meant to be injury prone because of the way he plays, but he's the most evasive man on the planet, and his O-line have protected him well. Joe Burrow isn't that sort of player, so he needs that protection, doesn't he? Because he needs that a little bit longer than an elite moving player. But yeah, hopefully we see Joey B back at the end of the season. Hopefully when the Bengals are out of the running in the FC North. Justin Fields in concussion protocol. Time of recording, no news on that. Aaron Jones with a hamstring. That's one to watch as the week goes through as well. And another awful injury, Austin Eckler, torn Achilles. At 30, it is a worry.
I think
he's done. Fancy relevance. It doesn't fancy relevance. It's not been the case for Eckler for a while. You just want to see a player go out on their terms, especially one that has brought so much joy.
It reminds me of Nick, a bit like Nick Chubb's injury. Not definitely done, but done as like any sort of force, really.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to see Austin Eckler again. But that does mean, Ed, from a purely fancy point of view, we must move on as quickly as we possibly can to get onto that waiver wire. If I need to replace Joe Burrow, is there a player who's not rostered anywhere that I could pick up?
There is. Before we get on to this week's waiver wire pickups, let's just mention last week, Quentin Johnston, who's still not played at time of recording, his rostership has gone up from 9 to 76%. That is one of the biggest I've ever seen.
Yeah.
However, only 20% of you are actually starting him as it stands. That's up from 1%, but you've got him, but you don't dare start him. I think I'd be in that boat. I'm most intrigued though by Harold Fanning, who is now 66% rostered, up from 6%. The tight end, of course, at the Browns. Is the takeover from Njoku happening sooner than we thought? Week 1 wasn't a flash in the pan because he's tight end 7 overall after week 2. So that's one to keep an eye on. But this week, yes, Jake Browning, as you can see, currently 0% rostered. Bad luck if you've drafted Joey B. I mean, he's pretty much done for the fantasy season. From a Bengals point of view, I think the best Bengals can hope for is that Browning comes in and keeps them bobbing along to maybe like 7-7, and Burrow comes in and wins the last 3 games and they sneak in the playoffs. Depending on your backup, Browning could be worth a punt. He's a decent backup. He's one of the better backups in the league. A little more erratic than Burrow, 3 interceptions versus the Jags, but he got those 20+ points. He will be inconsistent, but he has the same weapons as Burrow. So yeah, available in all leagues if you need a quarterback. Zach Ertz is somebody who is tight end 3 as it stands, only 53% rostered. He's currently being started, or this week, in just 20% of leagues. Who is everyone starting ahead of him? That's what I don't understand. Who have you got that you're starting ahead of Zach Ertz? There's not many I'd start ahead of him. 13 targets in 2 weeks and 2 touchdowns, 1 a week. Maybe the touchdowns have slightly massaged his numbers, but he's a reliable pick at tight end. And if I had him in my squad, I'd be starting him. Ramondre Stevenson, did we write him off too soon? 11 carries this week to Henderson's 3 and Gibson's 5. Add in 5 receptions for 88 yards this week, and he's looking like a really key part of Drake May's offense.
Yeah.
60% rostered, so less likely to be available. But he certainly isn't. I mean, we talked about him a bit pre-season, maybe being finished, and Henderson was going to be the man, but it doesn't look like it. Thoughts on those 3?
I've got egg all over my face with Ramondre Stevenson because I was quite happily pitching him as a sit, and it seems all he needed to stop dropping the ball and to play well was to have the fear of losing his job. That seems to have focused him quite well, doesn't it? I think that changeover is still on the cards later in the season, but we've been spoiled, haven't we, this last few years for rookies that come straight out of the gate and are amazing straight away. That's not usual. It's not what ordinarily would happen. But yeah, certainly at the moment, Ramondre Stevenson should be more than 6% rostered, shouldn't he?
100%. Yeah, you should be starting him. Another running back. To look at is Bayshell Tootin in the middle there. Lots of hype preseason, and it looks like he's got a role. Travis Etienne is the lead back, as we've alluded to earlier. Tootin is probably going to be a bit hit and miss, and a receiving touchdown boosted his numbers against that poor Bengals defense. 45% rostered, but if you're in need at running back, he could be somebody to have a look at. Now, on the left, this is someone I'm really interested in on the waiver wire this week. Is this a breakout season for Troy Franklin? We love a sophomore receiver, and Franklin is currently outperforming Cortland Sutton. Wide receiver 7 on the week as it stands, 8 of 9, including a touchdown. My advice would be, unless you're in a league with me, get him while you can. He's only 8% rostered. Worst case scenario is he looks to be Bo Nix's number 2 target behind Cortland Sutton, but there's significant upside there, and you can definitely see him emerging as Bo Nix's number 1 target. So someone to have a look at and quite likely to be available. Tyquan Thornton, on the other hand, I would not be considering. He's getting targets in the absence of the other Chiefs receivers, but for me, still too much of a risky start. You can make some big plays, as you did against the Eagles, a couple of receptions, including a touchdown for 59 yards. But a bit like Tootin, he's going to be hit and miss at best. Could be anonymous when Worthy and Rice are back and firing. 3% rostered, though, if you want to take a punt.
As week 1 draws to a close, we have just Monday Night Football to go with a double header this evening, starting off with Chargers Raiders. Now, a lot of these players are probably locked in already in your lineup, so it's just a case of what do you need from these? Chargers Raiders, we'd expect LA to go 2-0 here, but the Raiders did upset the Ravens in week 2 last year, so let's not count anything before it's happened. I'm most excited to see the second week of both Hampton and Genty this week. And it will also be interesting to see if Quentin Johnson, we've mentioned already, is in the mix again, or if he disappears like we have seen him do before. I think also my question is, outside of Jacoby Myers, we'll talk about Bowers and Mayer in a minute, where will the targets go? And will we have any other fantasy value from Vegas receivers this year? So the starting set is a little irrelevant. So let's just have a look who you might have locked in, who you might be worried about a little bit. So Chargers, Herbert, Hampton, McConkey, Keenan Allen after last week, he should be being started. I think at least in your flex spot, who have you got that has a higher ceiling than him based on what we saw last week? Raiders, Bowers at the time of recording is still questionable. So Mayer, hopefully you've got another tight end involved, someone on the line. Genty and Jacoby Myers are in. Could pay off. Quentin Johnston, I don't know. I abstain from saying what Quentin Johnston might do. And the Raiders, Geno Smith, if you're starting him in Dynasty or 2 QB, I just hope you're not hoping on much more than 17 points, really. If you started in 1 QB redraft, I think I'd be a little bit worried if I were you. Also, best of luck if you started Najee Harris, although after what we said about Ramondre Stevenson, he could make us look very silly by next week. And Will Dissly as well, I'd be a bit worried about. Raiders, if we've not mentioned them, they're not fancy relevant. They're probably not rostered anywhere either. So don't worry yourself too much. What about you? Had a look ahead to Bucks Texans.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting matchup rather than an exciting one, maybe. The Texans really struggled on offense week 1 against the Rams, who admittedly are a very good defense, whereas the Bucks snuck past the Falcons in a better game than that. Stroud is someone that interests me. He's year 3, up and down after that incredible rookie season. He really needs to perform this season. Locked in. Baker's locked in for the Bucks. Bucky Irving, Mike Evans, and I think Egbuka after last week. I think you're starting him, and most people are if you look at the starting percentages. When it comes to the Texans, I'm really struggling here of who you've got locked in. Probably Nico Collins, expecting a bounce back week for him after a quiet week 1. But after that, I'm not sure. You might be starting Sterling Shepherd for the Bucks. He got the targets in week 1, 6 in total. So there's work for him. Cade Otton was a worry for the Bucks last week. He was catchless, but, he's got the pedigree. A bit of a risk if you're starting him. The Texans, I suppose if you've got Stroud and you've drafted him, he's probably locked in to start tonight, depending on what options you've got. Chubb and Schultz for the Texans. It feels that both are kind of touchdown reliant. It's a bit of a risk to start them, but it might pay off. And, best of luck. Bucks, Rashad White, 2 carries and 1 reception in week 1. It's clearly Bucky's backfield. Hopefully you're not relying on him. And the Texans, if we've not mentioned them, I doubt you've got anyone on your roster unless you're in a very deep league. So the likes of Ogunbowale. Is it Ogunbowale?
Yeah, I reckon so.
I'll go with that. Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, the 2 rookies, are unlikely to win you any matchups. But best of luck if you are relying on them.
So we hope the fancy gods are kind to you this evening and you secure all of the week 2 wins that you need. We will be back with our week 3 preview show in a couple of days. And then Fancy 5 looking at some streaming quarterbacks, tight ends and defenses. And then Saturday for our DFS show as well. But I think that's all. Is that Ed?
Yeah, that was a very whistle-stop tour through week 2. It's going so quickly, Mark.
It is. I'm ready for a rest now. So I think it's time that we called Malcolm. Take us home.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.